I think the fact that Avraham came here from Israel, from the Knesset, I suspect has been very busy these days on all kinds of levels. I think the fact that he came here is, first of all, a great honor for us, but I think it also is a testament to the importance of the work that we're all doing together, and that there is a very important space that we need to create in the university to deal with contemporary anti-Semitism, which, as you've heard for 2 weeks, a part of it is the demonization and the delegitimization of Jewish peoplehood and Israel as a home for the Jewish people. So we're especially honored that Avraham is here. He, as you can see from the bio, he was born in Ethiopia. He was a shepherd in Ethiopia as a young man. He went to Israel in 1985. He has a BA and a master's in social work from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and an MA in entrepreneurship and innovation from Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. And he has an LLB from Sha'iriyah, Isbat Academic Center in Israel. And he also has a PhD in education from Sussex University here in the United Kingdom. He served as the Director General of the South Wing to Zion, an association promoting immigration and absorption of Jewish people from Ethiopia. Avraham was elected in the 20th Knesset as part of the party, the Likud party. He chairs the Committee for Immigration, Absorption, and Diaspora Affairs, and is a member of the House Committee, the State Control Committee, the Labor, Welfare, and Health Committee, the Subcommittee of the Status of the Elderly, and the Subcommittee to Care for Homeless and Youngsters. He's the chair of the Lobby for U.S.-Israel Relations, the Lobby of Relations between Israel and Africa, the founding member, I believe, the Lobby for Improving the Knesset Status, and the Lobby for the Advancement of Youth. He's also a member of the Lobby of Eretz Israel and the Knesset, the Lobby for Strengthening the Jewish World, the Lobby for Promotion of Sports and Athletic Lifestyle, the Lobby for Fair Pension, the Lobby for the Negev, it's the southern part of Israel, and also the Lobby for Small and Medium Business in Israel, and the Lobby against, and this is important I suspect for our work, the struggle against the delegitimization of the State of Israel, and the Lobby for the fight against bureaucracy reform in public administration. Avraham heads the Israel-Ethiopian, the Israel-Ghana, the Israel-Ivory Coast, and the Israel-Rwanda parliamentary friendship groups. And despite all of that, you somehow miraculously came here. It's amazing how much he's a busy member of the Knesset. So thank you very much for being here. It's an honor. I'm going to interrupt for a moment before I introduce you. I want Mala Taboria has just arrived. She's speaking tomorrow morning, and she is the director of ISGAP Israel. So welcome, Mala.
Well, thank you, Dr. Charles Asher Small, Director of the Institute for the Study of Global Antisemitism and Policy, for this kind invitation to be part of this very important gathering. I cannot thank you enough for all your efforts in teaching the truth about Israel. I want to thank all of you, professors, teachers, and academics, for devoting your time and energy to studying this topic in depth. You are standing in front of thousands of students, and I have an incredible opportunity to impact the impressions of so many young people when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people. Thank you for your commitment in spreading the truth. As a member of Israel's 20 Knesset and chairman of the Immigration, Absorption, and Diaspora Affairs Committee, the issue of BDS and anti-Semitism is one that I often encounter Unfortunately, this challenge appears in so many avenues. However, I want to begin with one word. To me, this one word is particularly offensive. It reflects an incredible distortion of the reality of what is taking place in Israel. Even more so, using this word in the context of describing Israel is an affront to all humanity. My personal life and journey proves that Israel is the exact opposite of this word. That word is most of the people, the BDS movement, are using apartheid. As you are certainly aware, Israel is often called or accused falsely as an apartheid state. On March 18, 2017, Al Jazeera News ran an article in which it published a UN report claiming that Israel established an apartheid regime. The BDS movement is based on the premise that Israel is similar to South Africa in the apartheid era. The use of the word apartheid in regards to Israel is also insulting to South African history and the justified struggle of South Africans against a true apartheid regime. If indeed one wants to believe that the current reality in Israel is comparable to South Africa apartheid regime, then I'm sorry to say their long-time struggle was for nothing, and their leader, Nelson Mandela, was in prison for nothing. First and foremost, I will fight against the label apartheid as an Israeli and a member of Israel's Knesset, but I also stand here for the sake of the heritage of those who fought against the true South African apartheid. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the word apartheid means a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race. The word apartheid has nothing to do with the reality in Israel. There are no actual parallels. I would like to share with you my own personal story and journey to Israel, which proves my point. Of course, my experience and my story also represents many thousands of new immigrants who came to Israel and integrate to Israel. And especially my community, more than 140,000 Ethiopian Jews immigrated to Israel and now are proud citizens of the state of Israel. I am an Ethiopian immigrant to the land of Israel. The state of Israel has afforded me equal rights as very other citizen. In the state of Israel, I was given the ability to earn 5 academic degrees, and I became one of the lawmakers of the land as a member of Israel's 20th Knesset, the parliament. The chairman of the Immigration, Absorption, and Diaspora Affairs Committee in the Knesset, I actively work with our democratic elected government to advance the full integration of more than 140,000 Ethiopian immigrants into Israeli society, and the Mennonite Jews, the Indian Jews, the French Jews, the Russian Jews, all immigrants. And prevent on the Ethiopian Jewish community aspect, we are working hard on the government to prevent the development of the black underclass in Israel. I would like to highlight for you 3 examples. One, the government on the Ethiopian, we're talking about the Ethiopian Jewish community in Israel. The government of Israel offers new immigrants from Ethiopia mortgage of up to 700,000 shekels on purchasing a new home, knowing that the community came without an asset, without economical background. So the government has a special program on providing for each family a special mortgage which will enable them to buy apartments and live among the other citizens of Israel. And the second point is on the employment situation. Today we have more than 3,000 academic graduated students from the community, and the government set up a program of integrating every year more than 80 academics into government offices, and which we are doing successfully on this every year. And of course also special vocational training in order to integrate them to the work market. When we have compare of the unemployment rate among the Ethiopian descendants, it's 8.8%, as compared to other Israeli citizens, which is 5.3%. So we are working, and the existing government set up a 4-year program in order to bridge that gap, which is allocated 55 million shekel on training 3,600 Israeli Ethiopians into the work market. And the other point which I would like to also mention to you is on education aspect. The Israeli government in 2001 passed a decision to create the Ethiopian National Project jointly with the Israeli government, Ethiopian community leadership, and the Diaspora jury together, which gives an empowerment and educational scholastic assistance for the community, which gives the chance in order to bridge the gap, the educational gap that exists with the community. And also the Ethiopian Jews are the only Jewish community in Israel is receiving free academic educations for all, not only for the new immigrants. There is for all new immigrants at 10 years, but for the Ethiopians, even the second, the third generations are receiving free academic educations in the universities, which is the government is financing the university costs and also stipend that enable to continue as many as possible students, because we believe that education is the key factor to advance and integrate the community into the Israeli society. We had 2 female judges appointed from our community for the first time, and we have officers in the army, in the police, and other governmental offices. That's all in reference to African immigrants like Yemenites, the Yemenite Jews, who are also needs a special treatment, special help, and the Indians also is making it equal when other immigrants are receiving 10 years of benefits from the government, the Ethiopian, Yemenite, and Indian are receiving 15 years more, and knowing that coming from more or less the same background. But I want to go even further. Let me share with you some more examples of the reality of the state of Israel. In Israel's founding document, it states that Israel will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its citizens, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, language, education, and culture. People of all faces, races, and ethnicities take part in all parts of public life in Israel, including Arabs, Druze, Bedouin, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. The current Israeli Supreme Court has a female Chief Justice and Arab Associate Justice. Israel's 25% non-Jewish minority has always had equal voting and political rights. Arab Israelis were elected to the first Knesset, the parliament, in 1949. Currently, there are 15 Arab members of the Knesset, including Deputy Speaker and former cabinet minister, and 3 Druze, with one of them serving as communication minister in the present government. The LGBT community lives in Israel without fear of persecution and with basic human rights. There is full freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of criticize the government. Women have equal rights in Israel. Israel elected a female prime minister more than 40 years ago, and there are currently 22 women serving in the Knesset. Therefore, I can't stress enough to use the distortion of reality to call Israel an apartheid state or compare to the apartheid regime of South Africa. Why is apartheid never used in reference to Lebanon, where Palestinians still have no civil or social rights? What about Saudi Arabia, where women and non-Muslims are second-class citizens? What about Qatar, where foreign workers are still treated like servants? And I will never understand how Israel, the only democratic Jewish state in the Middle East, which gives equal rights to all its citizens, is accused of being apartheid. My personal story shows the beauty of Israel, the country which allows immigrants to become leaders of the country. Migrants like me, the defense minister is the former immigrant from Russia, and the speaker of the Knesset is an immigrant from Russia, and the minister of Absorption is a minister from Russia. So you have immigrants are making leaders in the country. As far as my knowledge is concerned, Israel is the only country which makes the immigrants into leaders of the country. Let me share with you more of what is happening on the ground of Israel. Despite the efforts by pro-BDS organizations, heads of state from across the globe are flocking to Israel, actively pursuing the deepening of ties with Jerusalem. They are searching for Israelis' innovative technology and experience in combating terrorism. In 2016, our Prime Minister met with 230 heads of state and multinational corporations. That number continues to grow. The reality is that Israel is a light unto the nations. The Jewish tradition of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, is also an important response to the BDS movement. With its technology, Israel is helping the African people. The father of the Jewish nation, the Jewish state, Theodor Herzl, in his book, which was published in 1902, wrote, and I quote, "Once I have witnessed the redemption of the Jews, my people, I wish also to assist in the redemption of the Africans. What was once Herzl's dream is today a reality." When, as a chairman of the caucus in the Knesset, for the African states and Israel strengthening a relationship, our Prime Minister visited Africa last year, East Africa, 7 heads of states, East Africa. I was with him. And 2 months ago, we were in West Africa together also, in Liberia, meeting 15 West Africa leaders. And half a year ago, 17 African leaders at the UN. And we're going to have a summit, economic summit in Togo in October. Africa, Israel is going to Africa in a big way, as the Prime Minister said, and Africa is coming to Israel because we believe that we have a mutual interest in helping and using Israeli technology in helping in agriculture, water, and other fields. For example, Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation, concentrate on skills development and knowledge sharing programs, including government-to-government cooperation with African countries. Israel sends young volunteers to do grassroots community work in many African countries. Israeli innovative technologies have provided millions of Africans access to light and water through Israeli solar and water technologies. These are just a few examples. I could go on and on about all the ways that Israel is helping countries around the world. The many ongoing global and local attacks on Israel are often based on distorting information. This complex propaganda war against Israel frequently targets the Jewish people as well. Many new aspects of this war are made possible by the global development of the world in which we live. The internet has added a new rapid means of transmitting prejudice, hate, and incitement. Social media has become a way to incite against Israel. Unfortunately, today, there are a number of Western institutions and politicians, many media outlets, a variety of academics, some church leaders, Muslim groups, and even the United Nations and associated organizations who are pro-BDS because of this new system of propaganda warfare. I think the recent decision of UNESCO on denying the connection of the Jewish people to Jerusalem, to the Temple Mount, and to the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron is really absurd, and you can imagine how the accusation is false and how it is far away from the reality. Of course, Israel is not perfect. We recently have our challenges, particularly with the Palestinians. We are a country that has to fight terrorism and defend ourselves against all of our neighboring countries. Yet, with all those challenges, we are the only true democracy in the Middle East. As more countries face similar threats and challenges as Israel does, they are beginning to see the world from Israel's perspective. I truly believe that the BDS movement in the modern form of anti-Semitism of course, we remember that the Nazi propaganda against the Jewish people in Europe before the Holocaust. It consisted of delegitimization and boycott of the Jewish stores. That continues today when BDS singles out Israel, the only Jewish state. It falsely accuses and supports efforts to boycott the state of Israel, which is the heart of the Jewish people. This propaganda war consists of direct attacks, including lies, evil accusations, false arguments, calls for anti-Israeli action, and committing discriminatory acts against Israel. Therefore, BDS is real and it needs to be fought. As a startup nation, Israel has developed remarkably in its short history. Most remarkable of all is the survival of its democratic character under siege. Its vulnerability, however, remains great as Israel is confronted with existential threats from its enemies. Yet, the BDS movement is at propaganda war, which also endangers Israel's existence if we do not stop it. We can stop it by legislations, laws, and also enforcement of laws. Above all, by education. Designing every country, if designs its education system from elementary to the highest academic education of loving and respecting all mankind is a very important tool that we can fight these kind of evil actions. And so I ask for your help. Please help us spread the truth about Israel. Please stand up to the lies and falsehoods that are out there. I am sure that together we will prevail and that Israel will continue to be the light unto all the nations. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much.
Ready to receive questions.
Please.
Okay, so the level of, or the labeling of Israel as an apartheid state is usually geared towards the perception of how the Arabs or Palestinians within Israel are treated. So can you address how, what's the situation with the Arabs within Israel itself?
Yes, as I said, the challenge we have, the Palestinian situation, is a question of mostly the security situation. Israel is always has to defend its citizens, including the Palestinians. So Israel fights the terrorists, whether it comes inside, whether it comes in the neighboring countries. Therefore, in this case, we have a challenge. In order to keep the security, we have to act as we are acting. At the same time, as I mentioned, the Palestinians have the equal rights. The Arab citizens, they have equal rights. As I mentioned today, we have 15 members of Knesset from the Arab Israelis, and we have 3 from the Druze. So not only the Jews, but also the non-Jews have the right to be represented in the parliament and being ministers. The question of the solution, the last solution with the Palestinians, as you know, that Israel is always willing to make peace, and the peace that is a lasting and a very important peace. And Israel did so many actions on this situation. You know, the unilateral pull out from Gaza and in south of Shomron, and gave to the Palestinians. And you know also what did they come out. Israel is receiving all the time rockets. We know that they didn't have in those places hospitals, high-techs, and schools and like that. Build tunnels to attack Israel. Therefore, having this experience, while Israel is looking and longing for peace, but walking and going very carefully also how we assure the security situation for the future. This is one issue. The second issue is also when Israel is looking a partner and a democratic elected leadership on the other side, we don't have that. We don't have that on the other side. We cannot sit and make peace with Hamas. You cannot sit with making peace with Fatah or Abu Mazen because they are not jointly one united leadership. So Israel wants to make peace, but there are difficult situations. This is a reality. But at the same time, as I said, is that comparing when the Middle East is burning in Syria, in Iraq, in all areas, and Israel is an island inside these area of keeping its democracy and human rights.
Thank you very much for your lecture. I completely agree with you that BDS movement and false propaganda against Israel needs to be combated, not only for the sake of Jews, but for the peace in the entire world. In a survey that was conducted in the year 2009 in the UK, it was found that 166 full-time Muslim schools in the UK that follow the curricula prescribed by institutions of Islamic learning in India teach hatred for Jews. India is home to the world's second largest Muslim population. That's a reality that often gets ignored. Arabs are only 18% of the world's Muslim population. 33% of the world's Muslims live in South Asia, in countries of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. There are people, I'm not the only one, there are a few others who are committed to raising awareness of the Jews, the reality of Israel, that it's not an apartheid state and there is a lot of false propaganda against it. So would the state of Israel be willing to help people like me, like my colleague, Dr. Rohit Das Gupta, by funding the establishment of chairs of Jewish studies at central universities in India?
Yes, Israel has a special ministry on dealing the diaspora affairs issue, which means that Israel is interested on empowering and giving education for diaspora during. 2 days ago, I had in my committee invited the Ministry of for Diaspora Affairs, which is also the Ministry of Education. And I asked him to present for the committee in the Knesset for his office's activities and the budget, and he presented to us. Mostly, I have to tell you, the reality that has been presented to us is Europe and America, North America. I agree with you, India was not in the list. So, I assure you that I will go. I don't know if I succeed. So, but one thing I can assure you, that I will speak with the minister that India and other countries has to be also in their offices activity, and budget has to be located in order to strengthening the Jewish and Israel education in the diaspora. So I agree with you. We have to do it, and this is one of the way that we have to also fight the BDS.
Larry?
So thank you again for your wonderful lecture, and thank you for traveling to come to speak with us. It's an honor. It's an honor to sit at the table. Is there any information about how this BDS movement seemed to become so powerful in such a quick time? Is there information about how this has been funded throughout the world as to, what the funding is for this? Not only within the Middle East world, but outside. So you're trying to combat this, but what is it you're combating? In other words, who has been putting money in funding and making this so popular?
Yes, these organizations are really funded mostly in Europe. There are organizations, non-governmental organizations, governmental organizations are funding these organizations. Also in North America. So there are, and we have all the details from the NHO monitor that we are receiving, which I can really also provided some of the information. I think you can also dealing with that. I didn't go detail because of the short time. I don't want to take a lot of time, but we have really data, which organizations, which governments are providing for these organizations. And in the Middle East, those organizations in the Middle East, in Europe, North America, these are the areas, especially these organizations are working and supported. Some of the European governments also are helping. The European Union is also supporting some of the organizations.
Well, thank you for sharing your personal story. It inspires me. But throughout this week, we have been receiving information from many countries on how the democratic values are not reaching the full population. I was intrigued to hear how you have been able to integrate quickly within the Israel community. And I wonder, sometimes we highlight the best, and we don't often share. Are there any backlashes taking place on the ground from the indigenous persons who've been there, and how you've been receiving special treatment along the way to allow you to rise? Do you think there's something special about that's taking place in Israel that is not taking place around the world for those who are immigrating to new countries?
Well, of course, there is a uniqueness on the Israeli society and the Israeli government. The Israeli government is the home for all Jews returning back from the four corners of the earth. The Israeli government has a special ministry on dealing and supporting the Jewish immigrants who are arriving into the country or returning. So, unlike other countries, we don't have immigration law in Israel. We have the law of return. So we call it the law of return, which is those who are Jews are returning to their home. Therefore, the government has established a special ministry, the Ministry of Migration and Absorption, is receiving to a new immigrants and supporting them financially, giving them the opportunity to go and study, and of course, receiving equal opportunity is not enough. That's not only enough, it's also, we must add also our personal interests and efforts. Therefore, when you see that, the country sees it as a vital, as important for the strengthening of Israeli society. So it puts a special effort and puts allocated special budgets in helping the new immigrants. Regarding the equality of the new immigrants, the citizens and the new immigrants, they have equal rights. But when you are a new immigrant, you have a special benefits for 10 years for immigrants come from like Europe, America, or the former Soviet Union. And those who come from, as I said, Ethiopia, India, and Yemen, and other African countries have 15 years because it gives more time so that they can go and study and receive their benefits. So there is a special treatment on the immigrants.
And then no, I have to give them, see, they backlash for that kind of treatment?
No, because the society itself is an immigrant society.
Well, America is too, but that doesn't mean that, there's not any backlash because of the special treatment.
I can tell you my experience once when the government in the 1980s, the end of 1980s, when the government decided to give special mortgage, which is 85% of the mortgage is allowance for the Ethiopian families. There were people, the other immigrants went and applied to put petition to the High Court of Justice saying that this is discrimination. Why we are not receiving the same situation? But that has been stopped shortly, and today the Ethiopians are receiving the same mortgages and the other immigrants are receiving less. So in this you can see a discrimination for good.
British Holocaust of discrimination.
I heard it's
No,
good. I heard
yeah, you are right, because this kind of situation is taken not on the law, but it is a special government decision. Because if it is in the law, you cannot discriminate. But if you make it this kind of special government decision, which is a one-time decision, for a specific point, it is possible.
So you,
First of all, thanks for your lectures. I would like to ask a question relating to your activities within the Knesset. Concerning the decline of Israeli state is accelerated in the international level. and we observed in the United Nations and the UNESCO the initiative against Israeli state. Sometimes this initiatives leads to the pattern of diplomatic relationships with European partners of Israel state. And I am against really to take these measures to cut diplomatic relationship with European partners between Israel. But what are your action plan for working interparliamentary or institutional level for fighting against delegitimizing Israel? Because Jewish people has right to exist and to defend of the self-determination, and how you are evaluating and what is your concrete action plan regarding this?
Yeah, our activity is especially in my committee. We did invited ambassadors to my committee in the Knesset, and European, American ambassadors, Canadian, and we discussed with leaders of the communities also, and we discussed how we need to act on this situation. So I can tell you that there are also member of parliament from the British government also came to my committee, also participated in the meeting. So what I learned from all the parliament members I met is all want to really work on this situation and fight this BDS and anti-Semitism. Therefore, we have an understanding of working together on legislations, and each government has to work on passing laws of punishing those organizations, those individuals. So this is one way, and the other way is on education, that every government has to design its education system and educate them. So as far as my knowledge concerned and I understand, and I had a meeting with different politicians, they want to help, they want to work. And so we have an understanding of working together. So this is what I understand. We've not reached in that level of diplomatic crisis on this issue. Yeah.
Avraham, thank you for making the effort and coming to speak with us. I would like to use this opportunity in order to ask you to maybe to share some your insights from working inside the system. And I working with different Israeli officials since 2011 on fighting BDS. First it was MFA, then somebody decided we need to establish a new ministry for sake of giving jobs to some people, established Ministry of Public Diplomacy, Ministry of Asbara. At certain point they closed down Ministry of Asbara, established a new ministry, Ministry of Strategic Affairs. These guys, all of them don't work with each other. So they decided to establish a new panel called Ma'arach Hasbara Leumi, a panel for national messages. And that panel is supposed to coordinate everyone. It didn't really work. So my question is, where does it go? Where we spend the money, whether it's efficient? And last question, what can we do about Israeli professors who call for BDS appear on anti-Semitic events abroad and still getting paid by Israeli universities?
Well, regarding the coordination, the work coordination within the government, you are right in the beginning, this is what we found out, and I think now it is making clear the situation. The Diaspora Ministry Affairs is focusing on the diaspora issue, whereas the Asbara, the strategic and Asbara, we have to find the word in English. What is Asbara in English?
Advocacy.
Advocacy, yes. That is one ministry which is for all, especially for such as the BDS movement and other elements. So there is a distinction, there is a difference. The Ministry of Diaspora is dealing only the diaspora Jewish community. And the Misrad of the advocacy, strategy and advocacy is dealing for this kind of challenges, the BDS, the antisemitism, and other governmental advocacy activities abroad or inside. Of course, the foreign ministry is also coordinating on the situation. So, this is a kind of situation that we are working on that. In addition, there are non-governmental organizations are working also on this field. So we said in my committee that we decided should be a coordinating body on this situation, coordinating the non-governmental organizations also has to work together. So we are discussing, I think we are in a positive way and marching in the right direction, that it will finally reach to the point that we want to reach.
About Israeli professors?
Israeli professors, first of all, I can tell you, I'm not very much aware of, I know that there are professors, those who are not Israelis, and those also Israelis. Whether, why they are receiving Israeli money, Israeli salary, and still attacking Israel, this is an issue which I didn't dealt about it, which I am willing to investigate the situation and study the situation.
You have examples?
Well, I will be very happy if you may give me examples and likes that, which will help me
So one
to
of the
take that.
promised examples was Professor David Baum.
Yeah, after, I will be very happy to receive examples.
Okay, thank you very much for a wonderful lecture. And I remember that just now you mentioned the only solution Israeli government wants is peace, but it is not easy. I still remember that in 2010, when I was in Yad Vashem to attend the seminar on how to teach the Holocaust, a journalist from Jerusalem Post said at the end of his lectures, he said that let us tell our children not to hate them, and let their children not to hate them, and let them tell their children not to hate us. So I do believe that hatred of each other, this sentiment, is a very, very important obstacle in the peace path. So I just wonder, my question is that in nowadays Israel, whether both sides, I mean Jewish educators and Palestinians educators, especially in the elementary school and high school, they can work together and cooperate together to push something to the peace in how to educate their children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You are right, really, because education can shape. So if we all are educating to love and to respect each person, whether he has he wears differently or eats differently or worship differently, but if we respect his choice and likes that, it is a very important situation, and we believe that peace is very important, and every Israeli believes that peace is important, and I believe that also on the Palestinian side also believe that peace is important. However, as I mentioned earlier, that desire on both sides didn't meet yet. There are conditions which are not enabling to do that. As I mentioned earlier, peace for Israel is security. Without security, it is a very difficult situation. By leaving Gaza, we know that what a challenge we have now. So when we have that experience, we have to be very careful on the next step that we are taking. So we have to also see that the education is a very important thing, but we know that on the other side, mostly the education is incitement against Jewish and against Israel. This is a sad situation. So we have, as long as Israel is concerned, we want peace, and we are working for peace, and we educate our children for peace and for unity and loving and respecting others. So I hope the other side also will understand slowly and do that, the same situation, and finally we will achieve peace in the Middle East.
Michael?
Did Israel change or is considering to change the policy of negotiating with terrorist fractions like Hezbollah or Hamas?
No, as far as I understand, there is no change of policy on this situation. The Palestinians, they have to elect and decide who will represent them. It's not up to Israel to determine who will be representing the Palestinians. The Palestinians have their rights to determine who is their leader, who is representing them, and who is sitting around the table with Israel to make peace. Therefore, in the meantime, as I said, there is no a democratic elected leadership who is taking a responsibility and risk for peace as partners. That's why we are not achieving peace.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question goes to the law that has been recently put into practice that deprives the supporters of BDS from the right to enter Israel, and just like 2 days ago it was enacted for the first time. Can you tell me more about the rationalization of this law? In my opinion, it undermines the claim that Israel wants dialogue, whereas BDS are the ones preventing that and deepening divisions, but probably I'm missing something important. So can you tell me more, like, what do you expect from this law? How do you expect this to help you in this fight against BDS? Thank you.
Yeah, I vote about that law. So I supported the law because this is one of the ways that we have to fight BDS. First of all, there is no negotiation with the BDS movement because there is no truth on their ground. I mean, they are not based on truth. They are based on false allegations. And I earlier mentioned that. Therefore, there is no need to. We have to fight the BDS movement in all ways. And one of the ways is that, as I said, legislations. So we have now passed a law to stop entering them to Israel. The other thing, I would prefer also other governments take that kind of actions. And the other thing also we are considering, even to make it even harder on this situation, those who are boycotting Israel, or those who are initiating to boycott Israel, has to be also punished by law. They must have received and suffering the consequence of their work. So we're going to have also another law, which is on the process, that we have to also, people has to be punished or bring to court according to their actions. So I defend that law, I voted about it, this is the right thing to do it. It's not enough to ask you to help us and to educate the people. We have to also do, as a government, and to create law bills and enforce the law.
So the main purpose of this law is deterrence?
Well, first of all, they must they must have a result for their work. They have to know that they're going to be punished for that activity. This is the kind of thing. As far as Israel is concerned, we have the right to do it. The government, the state has a sovereign state. It has a right whom to receive, whom to reject to its border.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. I heard the word of peace and education, so my thoughts goes to the matter of education in Egypt and the peace. Between Egypt and Israel had a peace agreement long time ago, and despite that, we haven't any tangible results for this peace, instead of economical or military cooperation. Recently, Egypt changed many times, from Mubarak to Muslim Brotherhood until the Sisi. The Sisi has received a significant support from Netanyahu during Obama administration. And now, during we are talking here, there is a war against terror in Sinai, and Egyptian military received a lot of information and help from Israel also. In spite of that, the educational system in Egypt is anti-Semitism 100%. Fought off by a lot of text targets the people there, the young student, to bringing up and growing up on the hate of the Jews and anti-Semitism. Why Israel presented to the current regime in Egypt all this heat and help without asking him to make anything relating in this regard to the educational system, to elaborate, to change the point of view of young generation towards the Jews and Israeli, like a kuffar and Berlin and this stuff you are aware of. Why you present to the Egyptian regime all this without taking anything?
You mean in the education system?
Yeah. As a simple question you can ask them to change the educational system. Educational system is, if it changed to become more moderate, will be useful for you and for us. Because we are suffering from those people, radical waves and Muslim Brotherhood and Salafist use this text, this educational system to feed up the hatred against anyone not related to them and even to anti-Semitism. So, my question, why Israel present for Egyptian regimes a lot of help without asking for simple one question, to change educational text in the regards of anti-Semitism?
Well, I can only tell you that as far as my knowledge is concerned, I believe, and I think our government is also doing, countries who have peace agreement, like Egypt and Jordan, we have, I think, a cooperation, and I agree with you that has to be increased our relationship in a practical way, in the economic field, in education field, in all this. And, as far as I understand, we have this kind of situation. It may not be as we expect, but it is on that way. Now, regarding the education system, in the Israeli education system, we know that there is no element of incitement to any country or to any people. This I can tell you. Otherwise, you have to give me an example.
I will be.
Oh, I will be very happy to receive. This is our, in the Knesset, this is our education system is for equality, for respecting of other people.
Sorry, you talk about education in Israel? I misunderstand, I'm sorry.
Oh,
You are talking about the education system in Israel?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sir, I'm with you. I thought, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I
then
thought an Egyptian one.
Well, that is what I said that earlier, that education is which shapes society. So it is very important that other parties also, like other countries, as you say, like Egypt, like I have no knowledge of the education system in Egypt, so I can't say that. But I believe that the government in Egypt and any other country, other governments, as I said, need to shape their educational programs the ways that to respect and love people, different religion, different backgrounds, different color, and like that. So I cannot give you why this is not happening in Egypt, because I am not in Egypt.
Yeah,
I'm
now,
in Israel.
my question, why Israel?
Not
They
asking.
ask. Yeah, we have a peace agreement. You should to be committed with my peace agreement. You sign a peace agreement with me, but at the same time, educated the young generation to help me. How this matching together?
Yeah, maybe this is can be done on the governmental level, which is maybe on the foreign minister level like that. But I have no knowledge about it, so I cannot comment on the situation further because I'm not having a knowledge enough for that issue.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe you can speak, it's important.
Yeah,
Carl?
but yeah.
Carl?
Thank you, thank you, sir, for joining us here. I guess I'd like to come at some of the questions. I enjoyed your talk very much. I'd like to come at the question maybe from a political science point of view, and maybe what folks in political science refer to as real politics, right? Just boots on the ground where the power is. So if we looked at just BDS, it seems to me I'm trying to get at how one puts the boycott genie back in the bottle. That's where my question is really going. But I'm wondering about those three components, boycott, divestiture, and sanctions. In the press today, I think the U.S. is experiencing Putin's making very ominous threats about how painful the experience will be if the U.S. follows through with Donald Trump's signature to bring the sanctions bill to law. So their government is directly connected to that. That's government, right? So the sanctions piece, I can see that in terms of being connected to a government. But the divestiture, quasi-government, but sometimes people. But the boycott piece seemed very much like quote-unquote people power. So I'm wondering how one goes about putting that genie back in the bottle, and what is your view on that? Or is it simply that, from a real policy point of view, the Knesset's implementation of law and policies against those involved in BDS is more symbolic? And I think there's importance to symbolism. But I'm wondering, is it, from a real politics point of view, is it more symbolic? Or is it that you really believe that you'll be able to put that genie back in the bottle?
No, we first of all, we believe that has to be thought not only symbolic, in a very practical way. And then I can tell you that even in the United States of America, there are states that they pass a law against the BDS. There are states, they took that initiative. And Israel is taking also initiative of law, as mentioned earlier, is punishing those people, and we expect also other countries follow on this situation. I agree with you that the government on the presidential level has been done, but maybe we are on the process. I know I can't go details, I have no knowledge on that, but I hope that when different states in the United States are doing, and finally it will come to that stage also. In Europe, we have also understanding. As I mentioned earlier, there was a group of members of parliaments, the European Union, and in different government parliaments, whether the German parliament or the British parliament, they all also we have a dialogue on this situation. But what we expect that other governments to go and fight this reality, and at least on these three ways: legislation, enforcement, and education. This is what we
So a
believe.
multi-pronged attack.
Yes.
Thank you.
You told us that the Indian immigrants get 5 years of assistance more than the other immigrant groups. So the Indian Jewry is actually represented by 6 different groups, 3 Jewish communities and 3 Judaism movements. And most of the immigration from India took place during the decades of 50s and 60s. The recent immigration has been primarily of the members of the Bnei Menashe movement, who are people from the tribes settled on the Indo-Burmese border. And even in India, they receive special privileges. There is an affirmative action to uplift their status. So, is this, are the recipients of this state assistance in Israel primarily the Bnei Menashe, or has this policy been universally applied for all Jewish immigrants from India? This is one question, and I have one more question if I may ask. There is a Judaism movement that has emerged in South India, which is known as Bnei Ephraim. There are members of the Madiga community there who claim descent from the lost Israelite tribe of Ephraim. Unlike the Bnei Menashe, the Bnei Ephraim are yet to be recognized as lost Israelites by the chief rabbinate. So what would be the posture of the state of Israel with regard to their desire to make Aliyah?
Yeah, first of all, regarding the benefits for 15 years, India still there is new immigrants arriving, not only Bnei Menashe.
I see.
2 months ago, I did a meeting, discussion, only on the Indian Jewish immigrants. So I found that even new immigrants who are arriving, in addition to the Bnei Menashe. First of all, the Bnei Menashe it's the same area, so we call them Bnei Menashe. They are like Indian immigrants. So those new arrivals they are receiving. The other thing also, there is a request by the community that is, they asked me to advance those who immigrated in the 1990s. They wanted to receive and be included in that 15 years benefits. Especially, that's very important for the housing and for academic benefits. So this is for the 19, which is now they are more than 15 years. So we have now working on to pass a special government decision on this situation, but very small number, it's not a big number. So that will not be a problem for the financial situation, so I hope we will achieve that. But for your question, there are still arriving from Bombay, from other areas, new immigrants from India. Of course, in number, the Bnei Menashe is higher than the other. Now, regarding the Bnei Ephraim, you asked me, I cannot give you any explanation on that because as far as my knowledge concerned, it is not yet ready for immigration. This situation is under investigation. There are advocacy groups who are working for that.
Like Michael Freund's Chevy Israel organization.
Yes, like Shabbat and other organizations also within the Bnei Menashe also are working on this situation. So I prefer not to go detail on that situation because I think it is yet, we have to work on that and it has to be received recognition from the religious establishment.
How do you determine who's a Jew and non-Jew who's coming back home?
Well, there is a law of return.
I'm saying if I just say I'm a Jew, if I come back, so if America was not treating me right,
Yes.
and if I wanted to go to a better country that I see that's embracing and celebrating immigrants, if I come back to Israel as a Jew, if I say I'm a Jew, I can come back and get the benefits that the immigrants are receiving.
Yeah, no, it is not like that because we have all the details. And every Jew community members has to be a member of any Jewish community, whether it is in England or in America or Ethiopia or Russia or India. There are two ways of, there is a law of return and there is a Jewish law. The Jewish law is, the halacha is always, is unchangeable. And we have the law of return, which is in the 1950s, when after the establishment of the state of Israel, there is a law. So one who is born from a Jewish mother, one is who converted to Judaism, and this is a kind of criteria that is mentioned in the law. So in order to be a Jew and to be migrated to Israel, it's not only you are Jewish by birth or by conversion. You have also the right of any person who is not born as a Jewish, but converted to Judaism, he has a right to immigrate to Israel. Yeah.
But that conversion has to be recognized. And that's
Of course.
that's the biggest issue. That's
Well, that's what I was wondering. How do you-
It has to be Orthodox conversion.
I
Yes.
have to make it clear here. The conversion has to be recognized, of course, but it is not the Orthodox or the Reform or the Conservative issue. If anyone who is converted outside Israel by a Reform rabbi or Conservative rabbi or Orthodox rabbi, they have accepted for the law of return the same for immigration. Okay? This is the law, which is, it's also the rule of the Superior Court, which is clarified in making if a Jewish community, a Reformed Jewish community, one who is a member of the Reformed Jewish community and converted by the Reformed rabbis, all conservative rabbis, they have to immigrate to Israel according to the law of return.
Maybe if I may, the law of return has nothing to do with religious designation. But the question of who is a Jew has everything to do with the religious designation, and that's the big debate. But the law of return, in fact, it has prescribed that anyone who claims his Judaism based on his ancestry, his grandparents, whatever, notwithstanding whether he is by halakhic law, that's why we have in Israel hundreds of thousands of those who came by the law of return but cannot be recognized as Jewish by halakha.
Right.
There are about 500,000 like those in Israel. And that's the big debate, because the law of return was initiated as a response, of course, to the Holocaust. That where others have not designated you whether you are Jewish or not by halakha, we definitely will not do it. Israel is a country of refuge, not the Jewish state, but the state of the Jews, notwithstanding how they have been defined abroad. And that's as a result of all of this debate. So you have lots of people in Israel who came by the law of return, but absolutely not will be recognized by the Orthodoxy as Jewish. And this is creating lots of these questions that I mentioned also in my talk. So I think it's a very important, people forget about this kind of like separation. They are automatically become Israeli citizens, notwithstanding the fact that they are not being recognized by the religious authorities as Jewish.
So what would their Zehut say?
What's that?
Nothing, there is no...
No, Leom, it's interesting, I can tell you a story.
Excuse me, that's
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
Stories in the pub.
Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else for questions or comments? Okay, so Avraham, on behalf of everybody, thank you so much for this.